Kim Tucker. I am a student at Western Governors University, which is a national online university, and I am finishing my bachelor's in nursing, and I am studying a community assessment class, and this is my field work for a primary prevention topic, which I chose alcohol and substance abuse. I am interviewing Angie Hernandez, who is a certified hypnotherapist that works with drug abusers as well as many other types of addictions, and I guess you can explain, more.
Yeah, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and kind of a hypnotist bread and butter is weight loss and stop smoking. Stop smoking is probably the biggest, if you call it an addiction or a habit that I work with, and I do a lot of that work. I've had some alcohol come in that we work, minor work, not I would say completely addicts, but someone who wanted to control their intake more. That's mostly what I see. But yeah, it can do all kinds of things with hypnosis. And my colleagues that I'm in touch with a lot, we have some groups that we talk a lot together. We do a lot of that kind of work. So yeah, it can be very effective.
I would think so too, because I remember back years and years ago always hearing about, like you just stated, the smoking and weight loss, things like that. Mm-hmm. But now that you have all these other problems, if you will, in the world today with addictions and people wanting to stop and get help, there's other resources for them. So
yeah.
I'm going to start with just some questions, just basic questions. What population, and smoking is a substance abuse, so we can focus that, we'll tie right into it this as well. So what population do you serve, or what ties do you have to the topic of substance abuse or alcohol abuse? What's your population? This is Kosciuszko County in Indiana.
Well, I can't give you numbers because that's not something that I've researched.
Okay.
You can find that research. I looked way back when, but I've slept since then, as my mother says. You certainly can look that up. Okay. But we do have a large population that still smokes. And some are younger that come to me in their 30s. Many are older, okay. They're going on towards in their 60s or less. And I have had several who are in their 80s.
Wow.
The younger ones have some issues that are harder than the older ones. The younger ones, all of them that come to me really like smoking. That's the top. Mm-hmm. They like it. They prefer not to quit, but they have a reason to quit. And the younger ones usually haven't seen very many of the health issues yet.
True.
With the older ones, the health issues are almost always foremost. They're having serious health issues with their veins, with their breathing, with their lungs, and they know it's important for them to quit. The younger ones, sometimes that's a little bit of a stumbling point. With an older client, if they quit one day with me, I see them in 7 days. I can see big physical changes in them already. The breathing changes. Usually their skin tone comes up. They're pinked up. They're getting more blood flow. I mean, in 7 days, it's dramatic.
1 week. Wow.
Yeah, I had one fellow, I always talk about him, that came in. He couldn't even recline all the way in the chair because he couldn't breathe. I could hear his breathing. I could hear the crackling with every breath. And by the next week, I didn't hear that breathing anymore, and it had improved. And his pallor was completely different. His was the most dramatic change. But I see that on someone who's been smoking for a long, long time. The younger people, they'll tell me, usually they feel that they breathe deeper, but I don't notice it the way they do. They don't have the circulation problems in the so close to their skin, so I don't see the skin tone changes as much because they're not quite as advanced at that. True. But the cool thing is, if they notice it, that's a big help to convincing them what smoke-free breathing can do for them.
Do you find a lot of those are raised in smoking homes? That or why they ever started?
Most start with peers.
Peers.
Almost always they start with peers. I don't really get into much asking them if they grew up around smoking in their home, because they don't. That doesn't seem to move them much. I only had one person that was an issue, and he had lost both his parents to cancer. He wasn't very old. He was in his early 30s, and he was in high school for one and in college for the other. And it was quite hard for him to let go of a part of that, because for him, some of the best memories he had with his dad were outside smoking together. It was very tough. He didn't want to let that go. So we had to ask the subconscious if it would let go of clinging to the smoking part of that memory, and then allow him to have the enjoyment of being with his father, but separate the smoking in his mind from that. Because he was having a child then too.
Oh.
And he didn't want to perpetuate
Correct.
what had happened in his home. So, but usually I don't ask. I'll ask, how did they start and what age they started. Almost always it's peers. Sometimes it's a brother or sister.
Yeah.
Sometimes a brother or sister gets them into it, so they won't tell on them. Or they want them to go steal the cigarettes from someone else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Along with just generalized the topic of substance abuse, do you believe that it's a concern in Kosciuszko County?
A big concern. Yes, it's a big concern. And now, what's frightening is, as if crystal meth wasn't bad enough, now heroin
is back.
Heroin's come back
with a vengeance.
It
and
is.
Cocaine. I was interviewing somebody, a news reporter, and they said heroin and cocaine are really on the rise.
Heroin, because there's such a problem now with prescription drug overuse, but the heroin's cheaper than the prescription
That
drugs.
was it. It was cheaper.
Yeah.
Yep.
My husband works for the Bowen Center, so he sees a lot more severe substance abuse than I do.
Okay.
And so he's really on the cutting edge, and he keeps me up to date. But, you know, I haven't heard the heroin from him so much as I'm hearing it everywhere else even.
Wow.
And for that to be right here in Indiana, wow.
Well, I know that in Kosciuszko for the meth lab that we have always been rated in the top 3 to 5, even number 2 at one time, as a meth lab county. But what I also understand from another interview was the number of meth labs we clean up is the number why it makes us look so bad, if you
I
will.
see.
But it's the number of them that we've cleaned up that we count. Whereas counties like Elkhart next door, who's bigger, and they have just as bad, but they're not ranked as high as us because they don't have as many that they've found and cleaned. So I found that real interesting.
The way it's reported makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And I kind of stopped even watching. I watch a little news in the morning, and I stopped reading newspapers, and because so much of it's a spin. And I found that I was kind of surprised when I started to back off of that, how much physical stress that was causing me. I'm like, I don't need this. Those are problems that I can't personally change.
Correct.
And if there is a problem I can help with, someone's going to come to me and I'm going to hear about it, and then I can step in and do what I can. But we deal with so much stress, and you know what? Substance abuse is also tied into stresses.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we want to cover up the stress. We want to deal with the stress, and
finding any type of relief we can people will turn to anything that helps them and takes them away from a bad situation and makes them feel better.
If they think that it does.
They think, yeah.
But, you know, the easy fix is never a good one in the long term. Dealing with your emotions and even giving yourself permission to feel them is what's healthy, because here's what I see. People later in life are coming to me with physical issues, and those are stemming from emotional issues that they never dealt with. The thought begins in the brain, and the emotion comes out in the physical body. And if you don't deal with that, your brain will send that out somewhere in your body long term to help you. Things like chronic pain, especially when I help people with that. You know, researchers were saying that they felt like 80% or more of chronic pain was emotional. Now they're saying that number's even higher.
Wow.
So
I
when
did not
you
know that.
Yeah, when you take away the emotional component of the pain that's sitting in your body, you can easily deal with what's left. What's left is the actual structural injury damage. You know, I think I, for one, always felt like, well, you know, if you've hurt yourself or you have a condition, you're just stuck with it. But I didn't realize that there's components of that
I wouldn't
you
have
can
either.
deal with. Yeah, and it's pretty amazing that you can bring those down within a few minutes. One of the things I teach is tapping, emotional freedom technique, tapping. I teach that. Well, I teach it to most of my clients, and I teach it out in workshops when I speak at the libraries. And you can tap down pain within a couple of minutes with that. And that's the part of the pain that isn't structural. You know, I can't mend your broken leg.
No.
But if you have pain and your doctor says you're mended, there's no reason for you to have any more pain, but you continue to, kind of your brain gets on that little loop where it's like it can't stop itself. And we can tap or use hypnosis to bring that part of the pain down. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And working in the nursing field, I'm specialized in radiology nursing and MRIs. I mean, we see a lot of chronic back and all that stuff. That's interesting. And they've had all these surgeries and, I can't get fixed. I'm just going to have to live with this. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it, you know.
It's not true. It's
Yeah.
not true. I can't quote you the name of the study, but I remember reading about a study because I quote it a lot. It was I believe from San Francisco, but a back surgeon who wanted to find out why some patients, he would do the back surgery and they would feel the relief he thought they should because he fixed the structural problem. And others had all kinds of ranges, medium pain forever, severe pain forever, and yet it was the exact same thing that he fixed. So their study finally came to the conclusions. They had 5 or 7 questions that they screened patients before surgery with. And if you had, I think, 3 or more of those issues in your life, then your pain was this much percent, 25 to 30%. If you had 5 or more, then your pain after surgery was going to be this much, long-term pain.
I see.
And they were things like childhood trauma, abuse, sexual abuse and physical abuse, mental abuse as well. You know, these issues, because they're trapped in our bodies, in our minds. We don't deal with them.
Physically.
We attach it to something.
That makes so much sense. It really does.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see it
Yes,
all the
we
time.
do. Yeah.
All the time. And that's what we deal with. I have a smoker I'm dealing with now, helping, and he was in this week, and he came in all stiff-legged. And I was thinking, walking so stiff. He has a lot of physical pain, too. That's not really what we're working on. But this was the session where I wanted to teach him tapping. I always give clients who come to me for more than one session tools that they can use at home to deal with these problems. And tapping's one of them. And we tapped that way down. We couldn't do a full tapping because we had to do our hypnosis, too, for smoking. But we tapped it down less than half of what it was when he came in. He walked around. He was walking fluidly.
Wow.
And, yeah, so the next issue, if he decides to come back to me for, will be chronic pain, and we can deal with that. We can
that
deal
would
with
be
all
great.
that. Yeah,
And this is tapping, TAPPING,
or
it sounds.
EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. You tap that.
Okay.
You Google that. You'll have thousands, if not millions, of hits.
All right.
There's tap-alongs on YouTube. There's scripts, all kinds of things.
Well, I don't know that people, unless I personally wouldn't have had to take this class, I wouldn't have known that was available. At least what you do is out here in this community. So that's really a positive for the health assessment on this community. Is there advertising besides how I found you on the web? Or
Yeah,
YouTube?
I have my website. I'm listed with the AHA.
Okay.
The main place I get referrals from online is the Psychology Today, where I'm listed
That's
as a
where I
practitioner.
found you. Okay.
Yeah, and then I speak. I do speaking in the community, but I didn't schedule anything this last half of the year because my son just got married, so,
Oh.
and I knew we'd be putting a lot of time
Busy,
into that.
correct.
Yeah, but I usually speak at libraries. This year I spoke at Milford and Syracuse. Last year I also included Warsaw. And she's been contacting me for next summer. So when I speak at the libraries, I do 3 workshops on 3 different nights. The first night I do a hypnosis called Turn Down a Craving. You
Okay.
can come and turn down a food craving. I had a man in there for cigarettes once. Anything that you crave that you want to not crave so much. The second one, this year I changed. I used to do vision boards, excuse me, but this year I did mindfulness,
Okay.
which is also big in your field right now, medical
Right.
field. And the third one's always tapping, and I get the biggest audience for the tapping.
Huh.
And when I speak at the libraries, they do advertise. They put it in their
Okay.
schedule in the papers, and they put it up there. I've spoken to groups, but that's usually private groups like Kiwanis.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm willing to speak anywhere because
Well,
yeah,
sure.
people should know that they have
get
that
it out
chance.
there.
Yeah,
Correct. I would like to come and watch one of those sometime,
you bet.
especially on the weight loss.
Anytime.
I know, but the holidays are coming, so okay. What do you feel? Why do you feel this is a problem in our community? I know with the younger age, you mentioned peers. A lot of the responses are money and unemployment. But do you ever? You probably don't see
I think that the drugs are most prevalent in factory workers.
factory workers. Yeah.
That's what I hear and see a lot. And
Yeah.
they're employed and they're making decent money.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's necessarily true.
True, factory work, yeah. You don't see so many white collar people coming in with these problems.
They're there.
They're there on a whole
but,
different level, probably.
I was flying this summer back from conference, and the woman I sat with, she had someone in her extended family who had a bad alcohol problem, and he lived in Las Vegas. And he was afraid to get help because it would get back to his employer.
Oh,
And I said, well, you know what he needs to do is he's going to have to go off the books. He's going to have to use his own money and go off the books. But I said, no, a hypnotist could definitely help him, but he's going to have to medically detox first. Because we won't see someone who's really that far involved in drugs or alcohol unless they're under medical care first. That's
like
out of
already
our scope.
in rehab, of type of
If you
rehab?
come in and you say, you know, I'm having 2 glasses of wine a night, I'd like to cut back to 1, or I'd like to, I don't consider
No,
that
that's not-
alcoholism.
I
and
wouldn't
I'll,
either.
And I'll work with you.
Mhm.
But if you come in and you're an alcoholic, and I deem that, I'm going to ask for a referral from your doctor before I'll see you.
That's that's
Because
good, right.
that's out of my scope of practice. I'm not a doctor. If you try to go off completely yourself, you could have dire consequences. You know, you need to be
Yeah,
detoxed.
DTs, yes, DTs are not pretty.
No, and can lead to death in some cases. So
Mhm.
you need to be detoxed by people who know what they're doing. That is not what I'm
No.
taught to do.
Okay.
So you have to do that first, and then I'll see you. Same with some drugs. You've got to go through rehab first and be detoxed. I'm glad to
Right.
help you with that, but I need to know that I'm a part of a medical team in your case.
Right.
And it would be the same with mental illness. I would not see someone who's schizophrenic, for example, unless their psychologist or psychiatrist referred them to me, and we would work together in that case.
I know some research I did in the class prior to this one that was associated with it. I found some statistics that, I gotta try and make sure I say this right. Detoxing for alcoholism starts 7 hours after
Their
the
drink.
last drink. I'm not, don't quote me on the 7 hour, but it's hours
Yeah.
after their last drink.
Yeah.
They start
They're
their
to the place where they
DTs.
have to drink to feel normal.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not even,
I was
not even to feel
amazed.
high, or not even to feel, numb
Mhm.
from whatever they're running away from, but just to feel normal.
Just to feel normal.
And that's why
Hours,
if you
yeah.
hear of really, really serious alcoholics, they're waking up in the middle of the night because their blood sugar tanks
Mhm.
and wakes them up. And if they don't replenish that blood sugar, which they usually do with alcohol, they're going to be in a world of hurt. So they don't even sleep through the night.
Right, yeah. It's just, it's a problem. That is true. Are there issues that make substance abuse more of an issue for this community and our population, say in comparison to other communities around?
I don't think that's true.
You don't think there's any?
No,
So
I
it's
think
everywhere.
persons might use that excuse,
Okay,
but I don't really think that's
Okay.
valid.
good. That's. And what current resources are available to address our problem? Like, besides what you can do, if somebody, do they just walk into the emergency room? They just call their doctor? Do they just walk into Alcoholics Anonymous? Do you find people just randomly, where would they go if they just woke up one day and said, I need to stop?
They could do any of those things.
Any of them. So
they could do any of those things. Alcoholics Anonymous would be a good place to start because you can walk in, you're not being put under a lot of pressure there, and maybe you can hear something that will take you on the next step. Your doctor is another place that would be good to start with, but some people don't want to do that because they know their doctor.
Yeah.
They know
It's a
their
small
doctor.
community, actually, yeah.
It is, but everywhere's kind of like that. Even my school that's in LA, they warn over and over again, remember your client's confidentiality. This might be millions of people that live in our state, but everybody kind of knows each other in a way, and somebody that knows somebody.
Yep.
So, yeah, you might feel more comfortable in a place like that, or looking online a little bit. It's so nice because there's so many resources online.
The web, yep.
Yeah, but reach out and get somebody to stand with you, because standing alone in that lonely place, it's not easy to overcome a bad habit when you're alone.
Get a buddy type thing or a support person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might be Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't agree with everything they do, but it's a good place for information. It's a safe place, and it's not a bad place to start.
Well, and the other thing too, I think that's kind of key. If you have this problem and you go to people, you want to be where people have the same problem that you have.
Yeah.
So they understand everything you feel, everything you're going through, all your emotions. They've been there, they've done that. That to me would be really important, and especially even with the harder substance abuse like the meth and things like that. Because do you want somebody up there telling you, well, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, and like it's easy for them, but they've never been in their shoes. But they do know the professional side of it. They know what their body and what they need to do. I just think it would help too if they have a lot of like rehab sessions, or where everybody's in there like that, like Alcoholic Anonymous.
There's pros and cons to it, but if you're talking about that be very first thing you do, I think it's a good place to begin.
Yeah.
Not necessarily long term, not necessarily for everyone, but to begin with, it's a good starting spot.
What are there any measures in this county to counter substance abuse?
I'm sure there are. That's really not on my end.
Yeah, right.
It's really not on my
Okay,
end, because
right.
I know a little about Bowen Center. I know they work somewhat with it, but they don't have a detox center. So, if you came to them, they're only, like, in the inpatient unit, they're only going to take you in if you're looking to hurt someone or yourself.
I see.
Or the
As
police.
an inpatient?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very short-term inpatient
Okay.
is all it is.
Okay.
And if you come in and you need detox, they're going to send you back to the ER to be evaluated and
first.
put you on somewhere else, because they don't have a detox.
They don't have the facility, if that's true.
No.
Okay. Do you find there's any gaps in the system as far as, okay, we can get you here, but we won't be able to get you in till this date or this time?
I've heard that.
And that time in between is so critical. They come to get help, but then they're told well, you can't get help till here. So
they need to be taken right there.
Right
and I know if it's a really desperate thing and like Bowen is involved, that's my only vision of that. they'll work really hard to get you in somewhere if you'll go.
If you go,
If
yeah,
you'll
that's
go,
true.
that's
You
the
need
trick.
to
I
be able to
have,
go.
I have another friend who lives on the East Coast, and she does what do they call it? Sober companion work from time to time.
Oh,
And a sober companion will be with you as you're drying out. That's pretty much it. And sometimes her job is to get the person to detox.
yeah.
And I know she had a job last month where it took 3 tries. You know, every time they tried to get to the airport to get her on the plane to go to the detox, you know, she made sure something happened. She wasn't ready on time, and she made sure she didn't get on that
Excuses,
flight.
yeah.
And so the last time they kind of tricked her and got her on, she was pretty surprised, but she went. So
But she went.
Yeah.
Well, and that's good. There, people are really out to help them, you know, to
Yeah.
help them, and even if they had to trick her, like an intervention of some type.
Well, you know,
So-
she agreed to it all, but at the last minute, and when you face it, sometimes
You
that's
just
pretty
wanna-
hard to
It
face.
is. It is. I can. It's not easy to face your fears either.
No, it isn't.
What would make it easier for the community members to manage their substance abuse? I think one thing is this sober companion you just mentioned. Is there any type of that in this community right now
I don't
that
know
you're
it.
aware of?
I don't know if there is.
Okay.
I know that's an expensive prospect. They pay them a lot
Oh,
of
I
money
see.
to be a sober companion. I only had heard of him previously in California, like for more wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, she said that she does that sometimes, but she's on the East Coast. She's in a wealthier community as well.
I see.
So I don't know, but I would imagine
Mhm.
if you had the money, you could
Yeah.
pay to have a sober companion.
Like-
I would say most people here are going to have to do it on their own,
Oh,
with their
wow.
own, you know, friends, family,
Mhm.
and medical and other support staff.
There's a TV show that just reminded me of that called Elementary. Have you ever watched it?
No,
It's a police show, and he's some type of he can just helps solve murders and stuff like that. And he is a recovering addict, and his father's very wealthy and has this sober companion that actually lives in the same house with him.
yeah, they do.
I mean, I know it's TV, but that's exactly the same scenario, and
They
keeps
do.
him in line.
Yeah.
Basically, they're together all the time.
Yeah, they have
And
to. They
keeps
can't
him-
let them sneak off to
Right,
the bathroom
right.
too long or anything like that.
And she would, yeah. So that kind of was. Just reminded me of that. That really has nothing to do with this, but.
Well, it kind of does. I mean,
But
that-
you know, it's an
understand how
interesting
it
show.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who might want to ask what type of clientele? Oh, you might want to ask what type of clientele utilize their services. Who was there? Who was not there? For your services, do you have? I mean, what? When they ask what type of clientele, do you have more women, more men?
You know, I'll go through phases where,
Phases.
especially when I started, I kind of had all women,
Okay.
and then I'd have a man now and then. But with more of the referrals coming from Psychology Today, I've had a lot more men in the past few
Okay.
months, and so now it's kind of a blend. It's just kind of an even blend almost right now. I see a lot more men for smoking
Mm-hmm.
than I do for other
Other
issues.
issues,
Yeah,
yeah.
we do other issues, but and often they'll come in for smoking and then we'll progress onto something
Yeah.
else.
I'm
But,
sure
you
once
know,
they get through one hump or something like, well, maybe you can help me with this. So that's
Yeah.
actually good. So,
well, just like I did with him yesterday.
For
If
his
I know
pain,
they have
yeah.
pain, I'll throw in a little pain thing because in hypnosis anyway has a certain part of anesthesia to it. No matter what you're being hypnotized for, it's going to relieve pain. It just
Mhm.
is. And then if you do it specifically for pain, then you get the big relief. Like, you know, when things like a severe migraine comes in,
oh,
you'll see those go right down. That's not one that I can put on a recording and sell. That has to be one-on-one.
okay.
But, you know, it's kind of incredible to see it kind of incredible
would
to see a migraine go down like that. Now, someone who's in the mid throes of a severe migraine probably can't even make it to my office,
No.
and that's a shame. You know, if they called me, and I would try to do my best to go to them,
Maybe go to them.
because we could bring that down that quick. But usually, I'm not there. Now, sometimes I haven't done it, but the instructor who taught me the particular method I like best, she's done it on several flights. She used to fly a lot, and the call them stewardesses anymore.
Flight
The
attendants.
flight attendants. I guess that's a kind of a common problem with them.
Oh, the
And
migraines.
the first time she did that, like they weren't having food service, and it was getting really late, and she was quite thirsty. So finally, she got up and said, "Could I please just have a cup of water?" And they apologized and they said, "Well, our food service is off because our main flight attendant, she has a terrible migraine, and we're short-handed." So, and she sat down with her and took her migraine away.
Oh my
She said, "I
gosh.
got so many free drinks. It was great."
Sure, she should.
But yeah, you can
Wow.
do that one-on-one.
That right there in itself is migraines. I used to have them when I was younger in college, and as soon as I graduated, they went away, and I knew it was just what I was trying to work in school. So it was just I blamed it on stress, and I don't really have them. I never had them after I got out of school again.
It also
So-
can be if you're reading a lot, if you're changing your vision, if you have a problem. My daughter has a problem with when she got to high school and she had to look up front and then take notes. Her eyes didn't focus quickly enough, and
That would give her headaches.
she was having headaches with that. So if you have certain vision problems that you're stressing because of the work you're doing in college, that could have been all of it or
That
part
could
of
have
it.
been.
Stress
we
adds to it, no doubt.
And we didn't have computers back then either.
No.
And now it's like now I have to wear glasses because I can't see, but that's age, I guess.
I have my cheaters.
I know. That's how I started. Now I have them. I build them in with bifocals. Okay, for your services, how long have you been doing hypnosis?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Probably about 5 years.
Oh, okay.
I graduated in 2010.
Okay. All right. What can you don't? How do you make to hypnotize somebody for a drug addiction, or let's just focus on smoking since we'll call that a substance.
Okay.
How do you? What's the first? Just kind of run me through the process, just a little bit that you would do. Do you turn the lights off, or do you just sit
I
like
usually
this?
turn some of these off because, especially when they go in this chair, there's a bank of lights right over their head.
Okay.
So I usually turn some of these down just so it's a little quieter mood. But first, we talk quite a bit. The first session for smoking is a couple hours. So I'm
Okay.
going to run them through a series of questions about when do they smoke, do they like looking at the smoke? Is that part of it? Do
Oh.
they smoke when they're angry? Do they smoke to get out of the house? Do they smoke to get away from work, to take a break? When did they start? What age did they start? What brand do they smoke? So I know how much nicotine's going in their system every day.
Okay.
It isn't really the nicotine that's why the patches are not that effective, because the nicotine goes out within about 48 hours or less. It's not really the problem. The